We still don't know the origin of human language, or its evolution, or whether humans are the only species which can carry out symbolic thinking. There are several schools of thought which can address this question. Today, we will look into two prominent theories. The first school of thought argues that Homo sapiens or modern humans are the only species that have been able to create and use language for thinking and communication. The second school of thought, on the other hand, holds that language is not specific to Homo sapiens, and there have been other humans in the genus of Homo who were able to speak and carry out symbolic thinking. Let's investigate both in detail. This school of thought is represented by scholars like Noam Chomsky, Robert Berwick, and Ian Tattersall, and many others, who believe that Homo sapiens are the only species who can perceive, comprehend, and articulate language. Some archaeological artifacts that have been retrieved in the past few decades show that the ancestors of Homo sapiens left Africa around 200,000 years ago. Around somewhere between 80 to 70,000 years ago, some event happened which perhaps caused a mutation in Homo sapiens' genome and enabled them to acquire the ability for symbolic thinking. Scholars like Chomsky, Berwick, and Tattersall claim that it was a minor event but had a huge impact on the history of humankind and, of course, all other species around us. Tattersall called this event the event of events. Even though there is evidence for the estimated years from the archaeological digs and the fossils found, we don't have the evidence to support the mutation or how the speculated event might have happened. According to Ian Tattersall, this mysterious event, whatsoever it was, shaped our brains and our thought processes the way it is today, and apparently made us different from the humans who had lived before us. Therefore, even though the Homo sapiens who had lived before us were anatomically similar to us, this little change differentiated us from the rest of our ancestors. So what is this speculation based on? It's based upon some of the artifacts and tools that have been recovered in archaeological digs. As mentioned earlier, these artifacts started to appear between 80 to 70,000 years ago and indicate that the producers were able to imagine, plan, evaluate, and create imaginary animals and objects. It also shows that these humans were able to symbolically represent the world around them and also understand the symbolic productions of others. According to linguists like Ferdinand de Saussure, the ability to produce and comprehend symbolic language is fundamental to thinking. So, to summarize, the scholars who support this school of thought claim that syntax-based generative language is a very recent phenomenon that emerged between 80 to 70,000 years ago, and is only specific to humans. But it should be noted that these are pure speculations, and currently there are no ways to verify what enabled humans to start to think and verbalize their thoughts. The second school of thought, which has been proposed by scholars like Daniel Everette, is arguing that language is not specific to Homo sapiens, and that there were other humans in the genus of Homo who were able to verbalize and symbolize their thoughts. Daniel Everette is a linguist and an anthropologist who investigated the structure of language in Amazonian tribes. In his theory of language evolution, Everette specifically refers to Homo erectus, which was anatomically different from humans, but genetically very similar. Even acknowledging the fact that Homo erectus is claimed to have been much smaller in his stature, height, and weight than modern humans, the claim here is supported by the recovery of some tools which were produced around 2 million years ago. In order to produce a tool of such sophistication level, one would need to have some sort of thinking and do some communication with other members of their species in order to communicate their needs, thoughts, and moments of joy and perhaps frustration. The recovered tools are not as simple as the tools that, for example, a chimpanzee would create and then throw away. They need mental planning and commitment in order for the producer to be able to start the project and continue it and finish. So this evidence shows that these species were probably able to carry out some sort of thinking which helped them in production of those tools. In addition, Daniel Everette argues that Homo erectus, just like Homo sapiens, migrated to different parts of the world and at some point in time dominated the farthest areas as far as Europe and Asia. In order to carry out this migration successfully, Homo erectus would have to cross some bodies of water, for example lakes, oceans, and seas. They wouldn't have been able to swim across the oceans. They would need to create boats or floating bodies to be able to cross different bodies of water. Boat making is of course a sophisticated industry which is based on thinking and planning. But if Homo erectus was able to create boats and use them to cross the ocean to go to other places, we can conclude that it was also able to do planning, designing, and some sort of production. Their communication might have been through vocal language or even some kind of sign language which they invented. It doesn't have to be a local language. If all of this is true, then the emergence of language can be dated back to somewhere around 2 million years ago. Another question is whether or not Neanderthals or Homo neanderthalensis, which are another species even closer to humans, also had any syntax-based system of communication. Again, I should say that we don't know for sure. There is one school of thought that claims that since Neanderthals were genetically very similar to humans, as similar as 99.99%, then it's not impossible for them to have been able to verbalize their thinking. On the other hand, contenders argue that since we haven't been able to recover any artifacts or anything that indicates Neanderthals were also capable of symbolic thought, then this hypothesis is weak and lack of evidence basically refutes it. So let's recapitulate briefly. There is strong evidence that humans are probably the only species that produce thoughts and communicate them symbolically. As to whether Homo erectus or Neanderthals were also able to think and show symbolic behaviors such as language production, we still need stronger evidence to support that. Given that spoken language leaves behind no physical trace, this may be difficult to establish. Nonetheless, if Homo erectus or Neanderthals were capable of symbolic thoughts and organization, they may have also been capable of producing syntax-based language. Symbolic thoughts and syntax-based languages are highly interrelated, as evidence from psycholinguistic research suggests. But this further step, linking symbolic thought to syntax-based language, will also need to be established before we can definitely answer if indeed language is unique to Homo sapiens.